For the committee's case, here with me now exclusively is the man leading the next hearing, Intelligence Committee Chairman and member of the January 6th Committee, Adam Schiff. Thank you so much for joining me. We do already know a lot about Georgia, including that phone call we just played. What are you going to reveal new about Georgia and also Arizona?
Like most of the other hearings, there'll be a combination of things that are already in the public arena and a lot of new information. And what I think is most significant is we will weave it together, tell the public how one thing led to another, one pressure campaign, as we saw last week, on the vice president to ignore the Constitution, put the vice president's life in danger. And this week we'll hear about how a similar pressure campaign directed against state and local elections officials put their lives in danger. And similarly, the president was told this scheme is essentially something that his own lawyers couldn't justify. But yet he pressed on, uprooted people's lives, put their lives and our democracy very much at risk.
Your hearing will include evidence about Trump electors in battleground states who submitted fake electoral college ballots, even though Trump lost these states that we're talking about. We have already heard that campaign officials, Trump campaign officials, were involved in that. Do you have evidence that the former president himself was involved?
Yes, we'll show evidence of the president's involvement in this scheme. We'll also, again, show evidence about what his own lawyers came to think about this scheme. And we'll show courageous state officials who stood up and said they wouldn't go along with this plan to either call legislatures back into session or decertify the results for Joe Biden. The system held because a lot of state and local elections officials upheld their oath to their Constitution. A lot of them Republicans as well as Democrats.
Just to be clear, you said you have evidence that the then president was involved in putting a fake slate of electors out there. Do you have evidence that he directed it?
I don't want to get ahead of our hearing. We'll show during our hearing what the president's role was in trying to get states to name alternate slates of electors, how that scheme depended initially on hopes that the legislatures would reconvene and bless it.
Will we see that he directed it?
They didn't, and they pressed forward with it anyway.
Will we see that he directed it?
I don't want to get ahead of what we'll show you during the hearing, but we will show you what we know about his role in this.
Your committee sent a letter to Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. The letter went out on Thursday asking for her testimony. You obtained communication between Ginny Thomas and the lawyer plotting to overturn the election, John Eastman. What questions do you have for her?
Well, we want to know what she knows, what her involvement was in this plot to overturn the election. She has said that she is willing to come in and testify voluntarily. We're glad to hear that. Really, anyone with pertinent information we want to hear from. And so we have a range of questions to ask her. Obviously, I think the committee will be interested, among other things, whether this was discussed with Justice Thomas, given that he was ruling on cases impacting whether we would get some of this information.
If you find the answer to that question is yes, do you agree with some of your Democratic colleagues like Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that Justice Thomas should resign or perhaps should be impeached?
Well, I think that at a minimum it suggests, and I think we know enough to say this already, that Justice Thomas, to avoid even the appearance of impropriety, should have nothing to do with any cases relating to January 6th, particularly regarding our investigation. Because, we want our justices to uphold a standard that goes beyond what's lawful or unlawful to avoiding even the appearance of a conflict or impropriety.
Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren told my colleague Jake Tapper this week that some information has been provided on a confidential basis from your committee to the Justice Department. You know this, I'm sure you're hearing this. So many people watching your committee hearings are asking, what is going to come of this? Is the Justice Department going to file criminal charges? First question is, why haven't you given everything over to the Justice Department that they are asking for and they say they need in order to potentially do that?
I don't think Congress has ever done that, and I've been participating now in several investigations where there have been parallel investigations done by the Justice Department. Congress never says, hey, Justice Department, other branch of government, just come and go through our files. we also don't say, hey, we want to go over and just rifle through your files. When the Justice Department asks for things specifically, hey, we're looking at a case, we're investigating this person, can you give us what you have? We work with them, and we'll work with them here. I do want to point out the Justice Department has the subpoena power too. They can convene a grand jury, they can bring in witnesses. Traditionally, they don't wait for Congress to do that work for the department.
Right.
So we're going to work with them. We want them to be successful in bringing people to justice. But I can't go into the private conversations.
Well, have you seen evidence that the Justice Department has already opened an investigation into the former president?
Just looking at the public record, I have not seen, for example, grand juries convened in places where I would think they would be convened if they were looking at some of the conduct, for example, that Judge Carter in California wrote. He believed that Donald Trump was engaged in multiple acts that violate the criminal laws.
You've been critical of the Justice Department for moving slowly. If you've done so much work, why not help them out?
Well, we certainly will help them. We want them to particularize what they're asking for. And it's our intention when we conclude our investigation to make public our findings in great detail. But we have a job to do as well, and we are doing that, and we're doing this consistent with how our branch of government has operated and the executive branch has operated.
We've seen a lot of taped testimony from the hundreds, even more, of closed-door testimony that you've done as a committee. But why aren't you calling witnesses in a public way who might challenge the committee? Is that intentional because you don't want to deviate from the storyline that you're trying to present to the public and, of course, potentially to the Justice Department?
No. I mean, we are interviewing, frankly, anyone that has relevant evidence. We're putting that relevant evidence before the public. And we're doing it in a way that is the most cohesive and that we can get across the salient points to the public.
So, why not subpoena Mike Pence, for example, if he won't? I know you asked him to testify voluntarily. That didn't happen.
We're not taking anything off the table in terms of witnesses who have not yet testified. We would still, I think, like to have several high-profile people come before our committee. But at the moment, I can't disclose what private conversations may or may not be going on with respect to certain individuals, but there are still key people we have not interviewed that we would like to.
So Mike Pence is a possibility still?
Certainly a possibility. We're not excluding anyone or anything at this point.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much, and happy Father's Day.
Thank you very much.